Welcome, everyone, to Majoring in the Majors with Pastor S.J. Munson on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. You can pick them up at artistfirst.com. Your host is the author of two books, The Treasure of Israel and Christ Held Hostage, the Hijacking of American Christianity. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Pastor S.J. Munson.
Hi, this is S.J. Munson, and welcome to Majoring in the Majors. As with so many areas of digital media, new technology continues to develop faster than our society's ability to cope with it, and in many cases, to defend ourselves against it. Certainly true with the area of internet pornography. It's estimated that the average person is bombarded with at least 10,000 images every day, and many of them inappropriate, making our children extremely vulnerable, and often even purposely targeted by the porn industry. Here to talk about this and other issues and what we can do as parents to protect our children is Kristen A. Jensen. She's the author of the #1 best-selling Good Pictures, Bad Pictures series of read aloud books for parents and children that has been translated into 10 languages. She's also the executive producer of the Brain Defense Digital Safety Curriculum, the CEO of Glen Cove Press, and the founder of the website defendyoungminds.com. Welcome, Kristen Jensen. Thank you for taking time to be with us tonight.
Thank you, SJ. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this important topic.
Tell us, so we can get to know you a little bit better, tell us about your personal journey and how and why did you get started writing this series?
That is a great question, and I often ask myself the same thing. How did a nice girl like me, get into this position of fighting porn, basically, and trying to keep kids help kids be resilient towards it? Well, it started over 10 years ago. I moved to a new city with my husband and met a woman, and she was a mom of a large family, and one day she called me up one evening and really needed to talk to somebody. And she told me about her 17-year-old son, who they had found was molesting all of his younger brothers and sisters, most of them. He got the 4-year-old to the 14-year-old, and porn was definitely involved in all of that. And she told me this terrible, tragic story, really, because, this older boy was charged. He had to leave the family. There was counseling and all, just a tragic story that honestly kept on becoming more and more tragic as time went on. And so I listened to her story, and in the morning I woke up and I just kept this kind of thought just kept coming to my mind about how could we warn young children about the dangers of pornography? Because I could see, and I'd heard about pornography becoming an addiction with men, but I really didn't know much more about it, really. And so I could see now that it was starting to infect little children, and I just felt like there had to be something. So I thought, well, I'm just going to go online and find a book that this woman, this mom, could read to her younger kids so that they wouldn't get, doing the same thing the older brother had. But I couldn't find anything, and I was kind of shocked because I knew it was a problem. And usually there's at least 25 different books, right, when you go looking for any one resource. And so I just decided right then and there that I needed to write this book that would make talking about this topic really comfortable and really easy for parents, so that more kids could gain this kind of this digital defense against pornography.
You're right. I've, as a parent myself, I've checked online, looked at Amazon, and there isn't really a lot out there other than your book. And thank you so much for taking up the challenge and fulfilling that need. just the fact that a children's book about internet porn has been a #1 bestseller with parents and has been translated into 10 languages indicates how widespread the problem must be. I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and her little boy was playing with some game online. He was in the kitchen, sitting at the table. She was cooking. She was supervising him, she thought. She turned away for a second to stir something in a pot, and she looks back, and the screen is covered with porn, and not just inappropriate images, but hardcore pornography. And of course, she was immediately racked with guilt. She panicked and said, "I don't understand how did this happen, and why is this such a problem now, and how did we get here?"
Well, that's a big question. We could be here for a long time with that. The truth is that as a society, we really haven't designed our technology to protect children. And so we've designed it for ease of access, not to protect children. So you have, and there are some good things happening with some of these big tech companies, but basically it's up to each parent to somehow filter everything out, which is pretty much impossible. And even if you can do it on the iPads and the devices within your own home, the minute your child leaves the house to go to a relative's home, a friend's home, even the local library, they can find pornography, they can be exposed to pornography. And I think most kids, from the studies I see, they don't intentionally seek it out. They are sought out by the porn industry and by the algorithms. So children are very vulnerable to seeing pornography, and how we got here and how we get out of it, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, there's got to be so much more done with the big tech companies, and what I focus on is the parenting. I am trying to arm parents and children so that they can defend themselves. Because until we somehow clean up the internet or make it inaccessible to children, children need to have some defenses. And that's why my website is called Defend Young Minds, and that's why Good Pictures, Bad Pictures is so important to giving kids a defense, giving kids I say they need a definition of what a bad picture is, a warning so they know that it's harmful, and a plan so they know exactly what to do when they see it. So a definition, a warning, and a plan. And that's what my first 2 books are all about, is providing that for children and for parents as they read it together.
So there are 2 books in this series. One is for younger children under the age of, is it 8? And then the other is for children between, 8 and 12 or something. Can you talk about the 2 books?
Yeah, sure. So I first wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn Proofing Today's Young Kids. And it's for kids, I would say 7 to 11. Although I've heard of parents reading it to younger children, and others using it as an outline to talk to their teens. And I've even heard therapists use it for their clients who are addicted to pornography, not only to help them tell their kids what is going on, but also to help them understand the process of addiction. So basically, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn Proofing Today's Young Kids teaches kids, again, a definition of pornography that they can understand. And you can talk to kids before they learn about sex, although I highly recommend this, another topic, but that you talk to your kids as early as possible about what sex is. But you can read this book to kids before you've had that talk. And so it talks about the brain. It helps boil down the brain science of addiction and why pornography can become an addiction and can harm their brain. and the reasons, some of the reasons why they don't want that to happen. And so it's a mother that has a conversation with her son, and then the father comes in at the end. And so that's Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn-Proofing Today's Young Kids for kids, 7 to 11. And then I had so many parents asking me for a book for younger kids. And so that's when I wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, A Simple Plan to Protect Young Minds. And that's a very easy, it has much fewer words, it's very simplified with really pretty pictures, and there are questions that you can use to, like prompts, and there are also there's also a hidden camera, so the kids really have a fun time looking for it. And we have also published a play guide that you can use with this book. You can get that off of our website, defendyoungminds.com, and it's a play guide that will help you like use toys and to kind of play with your children and really drive these concepts home that will keep your kids much safer than if they don't know anything at all. So those are the two books so far. And I have a book for therapists. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So I have a third book for therapists that, because I had so many therapists reaching out to me and asking me for, some interventions, a way to use the book in their practice. So now we have Good Pictures, Bad Pictures guidebook for counseling kids, therapeutic interventions to address pornography issues using artistic, didactic, and kinesthetic applications. So that's a professional one. And then I am working on a book for tweens that's going to be very different. And it's going to be a graphic novel, and it's going to be more information for kids ages 10 to 13 so that they have even more arguments to reject pornography with.
You had mentioned using the second book as a sort of a guide to talk with your teenager about these issues. I wanted to tell you that I recommended your book to a friend of mine who has a young teenager, and she called me back and told me what happened. She said, I was hesitant at first because I know my teenager, she's just going to roll her eyes at this. She sees a children's book, and she said, I braced myself, but her daughter was absolutely rapt and focused, and it didn't matter that there were, pictures along with it. She realized this is important, and she listened, and they had a really good conversation. So just to encourage those parents out there, if you want to use this book also as a guide for talking, sort of an outline, as you said, talking to your teenager, your younger teen or older teen about it, it actually works too. So bravo.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the principles really work for any age of a person. And I think that, and I've had people say, well, I went through and I highlighted, the parts that I really wanted to discuss with my child, and just, and in that book, there are discussion questions after each chapter, which also can really help parents, make sure that their child understands the concepts and the principles that are taught. The more kids understand, and the more that they are convinced that pornography will hurt them and keep them from a happy life, the stronger that they can be, the more resilient they can be, because it's definitely going to be presented to them, and there may even be peer pressure. So your kids really have to be trained up in a way to reject pornography whenever they come across it.
Now, many families have what they call family filters on their computers, and often we're sort of lulled into a sense of security that, that's going to trap everything. But do these family filters actually work, or are they enough to protect our children, or what do you find?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different kinds of filtering programs, services out there. Some filter on devices or parental controls on devices as well. And then some filter the Wi-Fi that's coming into the house. And this is how I present it to parents. I say, definitely take advantage and use all of these. Definitely, there's a filter called Canopy, which uses artificial intelligence, AI, to recognize nudity or recognize, certain pictures and blank them out before you even see them. And that's very helpful because it's not shutting out a whole website, but it is shutting out pictures as they come through. And so, but this is the thing, there's no filters that can really follow. If your kid is using an app, it's very difficult to follow that app and filter what comes through the app. So there are limitations, but I say use them, because when you set up a filter and you say, look, none of us in this family want to see these things, so it's protecting our entire family, and not just keeping you out of it. We're all trying to protect ourselves, and this is really important. But we know that the most important filter is the internal filter. Internal filter, the disposition to reject pornography, the decision to reject pornography. And that is what you start at age 3 and, build up as they grow older, is a disposition and all of the reasons that they should want to keep themselves away from pornography. So yes to the tech tools, and we have a lot of yes to the tech tools. We have a lot of articles on our website called Tackle the Tech in that category, and you can read all of them, and we have tutorials, but you cannot rely on them. Because here's the thing, a filter is not going to affect the heart and soul of your child. Even if it could magically protect the child from seeing anything, at some point your child has to make the decision to, of what to put in their brain and what not to, and what to keep out. And so that shaping of your child's mind is such an important job. And obviously kids will always have their ability to choose one way or another, but they have half a chance, really, if you more than half a chance, if you teach them, if you make them aware, if you convince them and persuade them and help them build that internal filter. So I say use both, again, because using the tech filters is going to really speak to your children. It's like, oh, they feel like this is so important that they're willing to go through all this time and energy to set up these protections. And so I just think it speaks to children and shows them that you're really willing to take the time, the energy, the money to protect them.
I've heard some parents say, yeah, I want to warn my kids about this danger, but I'm afraid in warning them that I'm going to put an idea in their heads. And if you know my children, you know that if you say don't do something, you'll think, oh, okay, that's something that I'll put on my list of things to do. Or it might just make them curious. Wouldn't it be better to wait until it comes up? How do you respond to that argument?
Okay, so I get a lot of questions about this from parents. Like, first of all, am I going to make my kid more curious? Is it going to be my fault that they see pornography. And so maybe I should just wait until they come and tell me they've seen something. Well, that's what parents have been doing for decades. And it has led to a generation of addiction. And worse, sexual exploitation has increased, rape has increased. So that's not working. In an age when kids can get to anything they want on the internet with just a few taps or, searches, we need to prepare them, because I don't know about you, SJ, but when I'm caught off guard, I don't do very well. Mm-hmm. But when I'm not caught off guard and I have an idea of what to do, then I'm stronger and I'm more competent. And that's what we need. We need our kids to be competent at rejecting pornography. I'll tell you a story. There's a mom that she read Good Pictures, Bad Pictures to her son, who was 9 years old, and a few days later, he went to school, and one of his friends came up to him on the playground with his phone and said, "Hey, I want to show you something." And this little boy looked at the phone, realized that's pornography, and he knew to turn away. And when he got home, he told his mom, and he said, "I was scared, but I knew what to do." So kids can be scared by the shocking images of pornography, depending on what they see. They can also feel enticed. So, they're just normal biological humans. But if they are given a heads up and they realize, oh, I need to turn away, I need to come and tell my mom, and these are the other steps I need to do in order to reject pornography, to keep my brain safe from pornography, kids will do it. Now, there's always going to be that one kid that no matter what you do is going to do what they want to do, right? I get that. But isn't it better that they have some knowledge of what could happen up front, so that at some point they can say, you know what, I need to turn away from this. This isn't working for me. This isn't helping me. So I really believe that parents need to talk to their kids earlier rather than later. I think sooner is safer. So hashtag sooner is safer, because most parents don't realize the danger. And I say that because there's been many studies that show that parents, and I'm a parent myself, do not realize these days, the danger that their kids are in online. There is what they call a naivete gap, and it's huge. So whereas maybe in one study, 53% of kids said that they had seen porn, and parents guessed that maybe 25% of them had. So that's a whole one, like a double. I honestly think that number should be higher. I mean, I think a lot more kids have seen porn than we realize, and they're seeing it at younger ages. That same study showed that kids within these families that they were studying, kids as young as 7 had seen pornography. So we can't be naive, else it will hurt our children. The best thing we can be is educated about this problem, get the right tools to help our kids, and start these and continue these conversations. Because, like I said, we've been trying that other way. We'll just won't say anything until we find out that there's a problem. And do you do that in any other part of your life where you want to be successful? No. We prepare, and we warn kids, when they're little. We warn them about running out into the street, because we know that now that they have the power to run out to the street, a car could come and hit them. So we warn them early about, holding mom's hand when they cross the street, or looking both ways and all this kind of thing. And kids should be warned before they get onto the, internet superhighway about the dangers. And no kid deserves to face the porn industry alone. They need our help. And they'll have a much better outcome if we prepare them. They'll have the choice to reject pornography. I don't know that kids really have the choice to reject pornography if no one has ever really educated them about that. So let's give them a choice. Let's give them the internal filter and help them. They need our help. They really do. This is way too overwhelming for any one child to negotiate without our help.
I think about the issue of fire safety. I mean, I think probably a lot, if not most families have, an evacuation plan or have done fire drills in their homes. They have fire extinguishers and things in case something goes wrong, and they do drills with their kids. At least it's a good idea to. Certainly you wouldn't say, well, we'll talk about fire safety when it comes up, when our house burns down, and the internet is a raging fire. It is out there to devour not just adults, but children too. And so yeah, I totally get what you're saying there. Now, one of the things that I really appreciate about the book is that it's really honest with children about the nature of porn addiction, about the addictive process and brain chemistry, what happens in the brain when we look at an image that we know is wrong, and yet there's an excitement there too, physical excitement that is, sort of that we're born with, that it just happens in our brain. Why did you decide to include all of that?
Because I feel that children can understand a lot more than we think they can. And I feel that this gives them some really great scientific proof, information, a good scientific argument. They can see how, we have a thinking brain and we have a feeling brain, and how they work together, and then how looking at these pictures can become a real addiction. I feel like we live in, this isn't just my opinion, we live in an addiction-prone world. There are so many kinds of addictions that are available to us now that 200 years ago were not. So this helps kids not only with pornography addiction, but all kinds of addictions. It helps them understand the process. And if they understand the process, they're much more likely to be able to resist it and to realize, oh yeah, that's, my mom said it might feel like the pull of a giant magnet, but even if it feels that way, I need to look away and I need to do it, because there's a lot of harm that can come from it. And so, yeah, we are very honest with kids. Kids deserve to be, they deserve it. They deserve to be educated about this. And I was always, that's how I raised my kids. I was very direct with them. I was very open and honest with them. And certainly I didn't try to burden them with what was happening in the world, but I also didn't cocoon them, because that doesn't work very well, actually. It's not the most healthy way to bring up kids. They need to be prepared to live in the world they live in, not the world we wish they lived in, right? So, yeah. And the other thing is that, you can talk, there's a lot of other harms of porn, which I will be including more of them in my book for older kids. But, you're not going to talk to a 7-year-old necessarily about some of these other harms. You may not want to talk to them about how it fuels sex trafficking. There are a lot of other harms about porn, but the one thing, the physical thing, the thing in the brain is tangible, is something kids can like. It's like concrete, and kids tend to be more concrete. And so to give them a concrete idea of how the brain is harmed by pornography, that to me is a gift. And it's interesting because most parents don't know this either. I didn't know it until I really started researching it. So parents learn right alongside their children. And that's a beautiful thing, really. And you start this conversation that you can continue on a regular basis. People that are subscribed to our newsletter, every week we send out an email. They say they use those emails as talking points, as prompts to discuss with their children, especially their older children, maybe their teens as well. And that ongoing conversation is building that internal filter with their children. And they need it.
I had one parent talk to me. Her son had gotten involved with pornography, or had an experience with it, and was very honest with it. He said, "Mom, I was so confused because I knew it was wrong, but it felt good. It was just, I was overwhelmed with these powerful feelings that were good, but I knew at the same time I was overwhelmed with guilt because I knew that this was wrong." And so I think explaining the addiction process and the brain chemistry issues involved might go a long way to help to explain the confusion that children feel, because their bodies are wired in a certain way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we talk about that confusion, how kids will feel two things at the same time. And I think explaining the science behind, all of this helps to reduce the shame. Because we don't want our kids to feel guilty and shameful that they had this experience like you just described. It is a biological reality. And pornography really hijacks that sexual center in the brain and the reward center. And, but are our kids going to be able to turn away from it if they know nothing, if they're caught off guard? No. Most kids, have a hard time turning away from it. So they have a much better chance, a greater resiliency against pornography, again, if we teach them what it is, why it's harmful, and what to do when they see it.
Now, you said that porn addiction can harm our kids in other ways, not just in terms of addiction, but in other ways as well. What have you found is happening to our kids?
Oh, yeah. Well, kids, there are studies to back this up. Especially girls who look at pornography, and it's not just a boy problem. It is a girl problem as well. I think one day the porn industry woke up and smacked their forehead and said, "Why have we been ignoring 50% of, target market?" So now, women have been deceived into thinking that they're on equal footing with men because they like porn too, which is ridiculous. But so other things that are harmful to children, they are more vulnerable because they get into sex earlier when they look at pornography. They do more risky sexual acts. They engage in riskier sex when they look at pornography. Kids get this toxic sexual script from pornography. So instead of thinking that, that sex is something you do with someone that you love, with your spouse, with someone you trust, someone you respect, It's something that helps bond you as a couple, all these good things, right? They get a very toxic view of sex, which is violent, many times violent. I would say the majority of pornography is sexually violent. Rape pornography is a very popular genre. And barely legal pornography, where the actress looks very young, is driving child sexual abuse. So there are so many harms to pornography, but one of the ones that is really very scary is this disturbing rise in child-on-child harmful sexual behavior, which is what got me writing the book, right? I mean, it's kids looking at porn and then doing what their brain is wired to do, which is imitate adult behavior. So you see this in your own kids, right? They'll talk like you, they'll imitate, and little kids will love to imitate their parents. That's how they're wired. So when they see pornography and they're watching pornography, it's not unreasonable to see how they could then want to act it out on other younger, more vulnerable children. And this is happening. In fact, in one report in the UK, they estimate that 65% of all child sexual abuse is done by other minors. So, and it's sad because the perpetrator, the child perpetrator, is a victim as well as the kid that's being, molested.
Right.
So we have this huge problem that no one wants to talk about, but it is real. So you don't want your child to be harmed by another child. You don't want your child to become the child that harms another child. When this happens, depending on where you live and the laws, it is a complete legal nightmare to help your child. And we've written on this many times on Defend Young Minds because I just feel so passionate about this problem. These kids, they're not bad kids, they're good kids. But their brain has been so, I could go on talking about this, but their brain, it's a natural thing for a child to imitate what they see adults do. And if somehow they see pornography, they will sometimes act it out on other children. And so
use the word hijacked, I think, before that. I think that's a really good analogy. It is like their brains or their sexuality, their sense of self has been hijacked by this experience with porn. I think it's a really good word that you used. This might be, maybe more on the controversial side, but I was talking with another friend of mine the other day who is a child therapist, child psychologist, and she said, a few years ago, I would have a couple of young patients who were struggling with issues of sexual identity. Now, she says, my office is overwhelmed. And I have so many that I have to refer them out. She said, it is absolutely epidemic. And she blames some of this rise on the porn industry for exposing young minds to these issues before they are ready. I was wondering what your experiences with that or your research, could you comment on that?
Well, I don't have at the tip of my tongue any research, and certainly it might be there. My concern is, like you said, kids look at pornography, and if they're looking at, there's all kinds of pornography. There's gay porn, and there's just every flavor out there, 32,000 flavors of porn. And so children are confused by this. And it actually, pornography is a very powerful teacher. If you go deep into the brain science of learning and memory, pornography is a very effective teacher. And so we want to get in there and teach our children our values, not just sex, not just the mechanics of sex, but our values around it from an early age, so that we can kind of inoculate them in a sense, so that then when they are exposed to pornography, they already have an answer, right? They already have an answer and an open conversation with you. So they can come back and they can say, I was watching this with my friend, or my friend wanted me to see this. And you don't freak out. You are calm and you say, well, let's talk about that. What do you think about that? But if a kid has that blessing in their lives of having an adult to talk to, I can't tell you how many adults have come up to me and said, I wish my parents had had this book and this understanding when I was a kid. And I always know what they're going to say next. And they're going to tell me how pornography has just ruined their lives in so many ways, hurt their marriages, led to other addictions, hurt their jobs. It's so important that we have those conversations early, and that you teach I talk about sexual integrity, your values around sex, your values around identity, so that, but in an open way, in a way that is a conversation. I think that's going to be much more effective with your children than just slamming down this is what it is, this is what I believe, you have to believe the same way. I think in today's world we have to persuade our children, and that is much more powerful than just laying down the law and telling them what to believe, but telling them what you believe, why you believe it, and why you think it will serve them to have the same values and beliefs.
And certainly you want your kids to be able to come to you, that your door is open, as it were, to come and talk to me about what's going on, and if you're in trouble, in any way, you don't want them to say, I can't possibly talk to mom or dad about this because I know how they feel about it, the shame.
They'll kill me. I've had people say that I couldn't talk to my parents; they would kill me. My mother would kill me, and so you have to watch out how you talk about this. Like, if you say anyone that looks at porn is the scum of the earth, do you think your kid is going to come and talk to you about it? No. They don't want you. They don't want you to feel like this is what holds kids back. They feel so. They just know they're going to disappoint their parents. And I used to say, I used to hear, tell your kids, don't get mad at them, but tell them how disappointed you are in them. And, that can also be really hard for a child to hear. And I think the best way really is to say, if they do come and tell you, just thank them and say, thank you. That was a brave thing to do. And realize that porn is the problem, not your kid. Porn is the enemy, not your kid. So if they get enticed into looking at porn and make a mistake, keep that relationship open and even if you're scared. What I say is like deal with your own. If you find out your kid has looked at porn or been shown porn, just really don't react right away. Make sure you calm yourself down. Give yourself some time to deal with your own feelings, and then go back to your child and talk to them. We have a guide called, My Kid Saw Porn, Now What? On our website, defendyoungminds.com. And it's like an ebook, really. Goes through a 5-step process, a plan for parents, how to react, and all kinds of questions answered about these, what to do with the child. For example, should you let them describe what they saw, or was that just going to traumatize them more? We have a therapist that weighs in on that. And so there's this ebook on our website that is very helpful for parents. And I would say, since we pretty much know that every kid is going to be in this situation, it would be good for parents to prepare so that they know how to respond. They don't shut their kids down when they find this out.
Well, we've been talking with Kristen Jensen, who is the author of best-selling Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, series of read-aloud books for parents and children related to keeping our kids safe from internet pornography. She also runs the website Defend Young Minds, defendyoungminds.com. And as she said, there are many resources here for parents. So check out the website. We'll put the link will be on our show page on August 1st, and you'll be able to check out those resources and find something that will help you in your situation. Thank you so much, Kristen, for being with us. And gosh, I just feel like we could go on and on and on another couple hours talking about this. Perhaps we could have you on again in the future and talk more about this. But thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you, SJ. Really appreciate it.
Okay, and thank you for tuning in. And this is SJ Munson signing out.